Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Elise Reads and Speaks. Today I am bringing you my June wrap-up and I read 15 books. I know that sounds like a lot, at least for me it's a lot, but there were some middle grade and some shorter youth ones on there, but there were also some chunkers, so I feel like it works itself out. So we're gonna go through this really fast so that I can get through all 15 and you're not sitting here for an hour listening to me talk about 15 books. So let's just kick it right off at the beginning of the month. I read The Girl Who Drank the Moon. Now, if you remember from my TBR for the Olympic Games readathon, which I read all the books by the way, this was my most anticipated read. It wasn't 5 stars for me, but I did give it 4. I gave it like a 3.5 rounded up. And I thought it was cute. It was kind of like whimsical. I honestly hate it usually when booktubers say, oh, it has so much whimsy, it's so whimsical. But I really feel like it's a good word to describe this specific book. It was just kind of like magical but subdued. It didn't hit you over the head with it, but even when I was listening to it, I listened to the audiobook because I could get it through my library even though I had the physical one. And I really felt like the magic, the ambiance of the world, like it was just kind of fun. And I think that it really captured it well. I was expecting it to be a 5-star because it seems more up my alley, like it just was missing that thing to really hook me in. But the story itself was cute and I would really like to see this be made into a movie. I think this would make a good movie. So we're off to a good start with the month with 4 stars. And then the next book I read was another 4-star. It was Autobiography by Christina Lauren. This was my book club's pick for the month of June. Our theme this month was LGBT for June. And Autobiography focuses on this boy who's bisexual and he falls in love with this other boy. However, they live in a very Mormon area. The boy that he ends up falling for is a Mormon. And I thought the most interesting thing about this book was this other boy trying to reconcile his faith with being gay and saying out loud that he's gay. Like for part of the book, he was saying, you know what, I'm not gay, I'm just attracted to you. And I thought his journey was really interesting. Then I went on to The How and the Why, which was another 4-star read. That one is by Cynthia Hand. Now, Cynthia Hand wrote My Lady Jane with Jodi Meadows and I forget who else. And I loved My Lady Jane, so I was just excited to read something else by Cynthia Hand. And this one was really good. It's about this girl who's adopted and she decides that she wants to find her adopted mother. And all these letters were written from her mother to her that she didn't get until she turned 18 and tracked them down. So you're getting like this dual timeline of the mother's letters when she was pregnant with this girl, and then the girl's actual timeline, like real time, what's happening right now. And it was just a really, really enjoyable read. I thought that there was some heavy issues in here too, as far as like feelings of being adopted. The main girl actually says something pretty racist to her best friend who is black, and that was dealt with head on. I mean, the way that she apologized, really apologized, I was like, you know, at this day and age, people could learn a thing or two by reading this book. And there was also some good stuff in here just about like development in general and being in high school and having to go to that next step of college and making those decisions. Like, I don't know, it was a nice coming of age book I thought was really well written. 4 stars. All right, next I went on to Crave. Let me tell you something. This is not a good book. Oh God, it's really not a good book. And yet I read the entire thick thing and I would read the next one, fully knowing that it's not a good book, all right? I was between 2 and 3 stars for this one. I ended up giving it 3 stars because I was like, you know, I would read the next one, so maybe it's not 2 stars for me. But it's really not a good book. But it has like all the cheesy elements that I love, like, you know, a school with some supernatural beings in it as far as like vampires and werewolves and dragons and witches. Were there werewolves? Did I just make that up? I may have made up the werewolves because it's just so close to Twilight, which is mentioned in this book. He like gives it to her as a gift. Oh God, it's so cheesy. And it wasn't good. And yet I gave it 3 stars because it's just the type of cheese I enjoy. That's all I can say. All right, TV, if you're watching this, like you and I imagine we'll see eye to eye on this book. Then I went on to The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Junauda Petrus, and this one, oh, it was not for me. The language was just too flowery. Like, I just don't do well with overly descriptive language. I just don't. And you know, I say that and people bash Caraval for the same thing. And I love Caraval. I guess that's like the exception because I loved Caraval. So I tried reading these other flowery books like, you know, Strange the Dreamer, and what was another one? Like The Starless Sea. What's another flowery book? I don't know. I can't think of any other thing off the top of my head. But I just don't do well with overly descriptive language, and this one just felt too flowery to me. I was really excited because I was like, oh, it's black and it's queer. Perfect book for this month. And it just, I just didn't like it. That's all I can say. 2 stars. It wasn't awful. I just didn't like it. Then I went on to White Rage. I took part in the Blackout Buddy Readathon where you had to read White Rage and White Fragility, and I ended up liking White Rage more. Why? Because it gave me a glimpse of US history that I had no freaking clue about. Like, I was never taught that stuff, so there was a lot of new information in here for me. Like, oh, just thinking about it gets me so angry. Like, why? Why didn't I know? Why? Like, what? Okay, I'm gonna try not to be angry. This book was enlightening for me, so I gave it 4 stars. On the other hand, with White Fragility, I wasn't so into this one. Like, I thought it had some important lessons in there, but I also felt, I don't know, I guess a little strange about a white woman talking to me about racism. I mean, like, I get the point of the book. She's trying to appeal to other white people to talk about their fragility and how they can, like, turn it around and be a better ally. It's just, I don't know. It's a white woman talking to me about racism, so I don't know. I just felt a little weird about it. It just wasn't as eye-opening as White Rage for me, so I ended up giving White Rage 4 stars. I gave White Fragility 3 stars. It wasn't that I didn't like this book, I just didn't really get much out of it. Then I went on to The Dollmaker of Krakow. Oh, I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I cried at the end. It was so good. This is a middle grade book and it's just so imaginative and oh my God, my heart. I felt like it just ripped my heart out of my chest at the end. It was, oh, so good. Let me see if I can sum it up. All right, there is a dollmaker of Krakow. He's called Dollmaker throughout the entire book. He makes this doll and she comes to life. All right, that's not a usual thing for him. He's never made a doll that's come to life before, but something in him called out to her in the land of dolls and she came. Like, once he put this fake little heart in the doll, she came to life and they struck up this friendship, and it was just, it was so beautiful because he was so lonely and just needed somebody, and I think that's how he ended up calling out to her and she joined him. Now, in this world that they're in, the Nazis are slowly taking over. They have a really good friendship with a Jewish man and his daughter, and it was so good. I don't want to cry about it, but this Jewish man and the Jewish daughter end up being sent to the slums, to the ghetto of Krakow, and the dollmaker and this doll, Katrina, try and save the girl. You know, it's not so much about the father. The father just wants his daughter out. So they come up with a plan to save a bunch of children in this ghetto of Krakow. And it was just, it was so good. And then, I'm gonna cry. I'm not gonna tell you about the end, but like, clearly I love this book. It was just beautiful. Okay, let's get over my crying and talk about the next book that I read. The next book I read was Lovely War by Julie Berry. I listened to this one via audiobook for the Olympic Games readathon, and unfortunately, I just was underwhelmed. I gave it 3 stars. It was a well-written book, and there were things in there that I really enjoyed. Like, there's 2 different things going on with the gods talking. There's Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Ares, Hades, and I think there was another one that joined the mix sometime in there. Apollo, that was the other one. All right, all this stuff with the gods, I was really into. Like, I thought they were written really well. Their banter back and forth was good. Them telling the stories and their side of the stories I thought was really interesting. It was just like the main romance stories themselves. They just didn't draw me in. And every time I was listening to those love stories, I say stories, I think there was like 2 love stories combined, whatever. Again, I really didn't pay attention. I just wanted to get back to the gods. So I feel like this book would have been better for me if these gods had been taken into that love story, if they played some type of role where they were characters in the love story instead of just like watching from afar and manipulating it. What a bummer, because I thought that one really had the potential to be 5 stars for me, because it takes place during a world war. There's romance going on. There's just so much stuff with the gods, and I'm a nerd for Greek mythology, and it just fell flat for me. What a bummer. Next, I went on to The Silver Gate, and I was not a fan of this one. This one is a middle grade book. I ended up giving it 2 stars because there were just some things that irked me. So the premise is that there is this sister and a brother. The mother took the sister to live in the forest because the sister has a developmental delay. What I did like is that the author at the beginning of the book highlighted what developmental delay that she crafted this girl in mind with, and it's called Rubinstein-Tay-B syndrome. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I could be wrong. So immediately I Googled it and looked it up because I wanted to fully immerse myself in the story, and I was excited just as an SLP that somebody was drawing attention to another developmental delay, and I wanted to give it my all, like I really wanted to invest. The mother ends up dying right in the beginning of the story. So the father wants to sell this poor little sister to another family to work as a servant, as a slave. And so the brother decides, not gonna happen. I'm gonna take my sister and I'm gonna run away with her. Sounds great, right? It's just the way that this brother treated his sister, I could not get behind. And I know they were both children, but it just did not sit right with me. There was one scene where he held her down and cut her hair, and it was really traumatic for me to read because she was screaming no and she was so upset and he was not hearing her. And people with developmental delays, they need to be heard. It's not okay for you to just make choices for them. It didn't sit well with me. Oh my gosh, what is with this wrap up? I'm getting really, really emotional. I don't know. That did not sit well with me, and it really made me upset. And I couldn't even forget it for the rest of the story. I know it sounds like a 1 star. I gave it the 2 stars because I really appreciated the author drawing some type of attention to a syndrome that's really not well known. I really appreciated that, and I felt like that earned another star. It was just the story itself that I was like, no, not for me. Then I went on to another hard-hitting book, which was Orpheus Girl. And this one was great. I gave it 4 stars. This one was for the prompt that was less than 200 pages. So less than 200 pages, and you pulled out a 4 star for me. It was really well written. Really was. It was eye-opening for me. I will say there's trigger warnings in here for conversion therapy. This is not a happy gay book. It's not. And if you're expecting to go into this and read about 2 girls falling in love, you will read that, but then those 2 girls are discovered and sent by their families to some warped place that practices conversion therapy with shocks, like electroshocks, and that's really jarring. I enjoyed the story, and I like that it made me feel so passionately, how could people possibly do this? This is insane. And I liked the journey that they were getting to. I want more of these characters. And I know when I was looking at a question that she had answered on Goodreads, somebody asked her something, and she said, she left it kind of open because she's not sure if she's done with these characters yet. I really hope she's not, because I liked the both of them a lot, and it was a really good story. Then I went on to A Dog's Life by Anne M. Martin. Anne M. Martin, author of The Babysitter's Club. Right? Wonderful. A Dog's Life. It sounds happy, but there is actually some dark stuff in here. It is told from the perspective of a stray dog who, gets kicked out with her her brother dog somewhere, and then the brother is taken and she's not taken and she's left all by her lonesome. She makes some friends along the way, but you know, being a stray, like, oh, some of those friends may die. Like, it was hard hitting, but at the same time, like, I really appreciated this because I felt like it made me look at strays differently. And I feel like if I came across another stray, I would just need to take it into my home. I will tell you something about me. Stray dogs, they seem to find me. And I have reunited owners with their dogs many a time, because it's like when a dog is lost on the street, it must have a radar in its head for me. You know, let's find Elise, she'll get us home. And I do. It's happened like maybe a little less than 10 times. Okay, so this is like my kind of story. These are my people. These are my pups, all right? So good. I gave it 4 stars. There's apparently a companion book to this one about her brother that was taken away from her, so I'm gonna read that one too. Next, I went on to Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Ugh, this wrap up is just gonna be emotional all around. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I thought the story itself was 4 stars, but the way that I just connected to it, and I'll explain that in a second, I had to give it 5 stars because this is going to be one that sticks with me. The premise is that this guy has 2 families. You know, the wives both know that the other one exists because they used to be friends way back in the day, but the daughters don't know, so that when this guy dies in a plane crash and the daughters discover that they have a half-sister, they're coming to grips with this man who is not perfect. They've loved him their entire lives, and the dad is the hero in every daughter's eyes, you know? And they find out once he passes that he is not the hero that they always imagined him to be. So they're reconciling that with missing their dad because he just died. So the reason I gel so much with this story is that I had to go through the same thing. You know, my dad was not wonderful. There was a period of 2 years in my life where I refused to talk to him because this crap that he pulled that tore my family apart. And I decided to bury the hatchet because I was just like, I've had enough. He never gave me an apology or anything, but I just decided to be the bigger person and say, hey, you know, you want to get dinner because this has gone on long enough. And we rebuilt our relationship from there. It was never 100% because, you know, he never apologized. But he was a really great grandfather to my kid, and I think that's the best way that he could have shown his love for me. So he passed away unexpectedly, and, you know, I just have to reconcile him not being this wonderful person that for most of my life I thought he was, but I just missed him so much. So I really felt like Clap When You Land was written for me. I think that's all I can say about that story for now. So let's move on to something that sucked. That would be The Betrothed by Kira Cass. What the hell was that? I ended up giving it 2 stars because I felt like it at least picked up in the end, and I was like, okay, maybe this would lead to a place that I'd want to continue on, maybe? But the majority of that book was just so boring. And I mean, I'm like a huge Selection fangirl. The original Selection trilogy I loved. Did not like the last 2 books, would not recommend the last 2 books. In the Selection, you just stick with the original trilogy. I've read that thing several times. I love that trilogy. And I cannot believe that this is the same author. Like, The Betrothed was so boring. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know what she was thinking. Boring. Maybe it's like a 1.5 star, rounded up. Whatever it was, it sucked. And my last book of the month, Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsession. I did a buddy read with Emily at Novell Novels, and she kept to the buddy read much better than I did, as is expected. I suck at stuff like that. But I was very excited to read it with somebody that was into it as I was. I loved this. Like, the thing is, I love Anne Boleyn, and I love this author, Alison Ware, love her. So I knew going into this that she would have to screw it up royally for me not to give this 5 stars. The good thing is that she didn't do this, so this got a 5 star for me. I really enjoyed this one because I felt like it challenged the biases that I already have. Like, I mean, you know me. I am in love with Anne Boleyn. I love her. It's not that I like worship her or, you know, idolize her in the fact that I want to be her or something. No, no, no. It's just, I think she's so fascinating that I really just get swept up in stories about her, and I just, I know how I want the stories to go. You know, like I want to hear about her wit, her strength. I want to hear about her romance with Henry. You know, I see that as a romantic story, even though she was tearing a marriage apart, which is awful. The thing I really liked about this is that she was not great, all right? It like slapped me in the face with, hey, she's not wonderful. She treated Catherine of Aragon like crap, and Lady Mary even more so. And in this book, the author made the choice for her not to be in love with Henry, that it was more of a power grab, which, I mean, most people think anyway, and I totally get that too. But I feel like my nice little head likes to think that she hung on for as long as she did because she was in love with him, even though she knew she was doing something wrong and wanted some power, but she was still in love with him. In this book, no, she chose not to write Anne that way. And I appreciated it because it made me pull back from the things that I have so internalized about this historical character that I just am fascinated with. So I felt like it forced me to see her in a different light, which I really, really enjoyed. The things that I was not crazy about in the beginning of this book, there is a lot of rape. Rape. And not just from like one guy, like 1, 2, 3, 4 men committing some rape. I just felt like that was a lot. That was a lot of rape. I know that in this time period, women were just kind of seen as objects or like a means to an end. Like the purpose of a woman was to just make more children. So I get that they didn't really feel like they could challenge authority, especially if it's a man of power like a king or even a lord that's just over you. You feel like you can't say no to. So I get why Alison Ware chose to have these women be victims of rape. It seemed a bit excessive to me, is all. The other thing that I am just personally not going to agree with, she chose to have Anne Boleyn not be an attentive mother to Elizabeth. And I like that she put at the end in her author's notes and acknowledgements and stuff, you know, she read a lot of historical facts that she stayed away from Elizabeth a lot and wasn't written up as being a very present mother in her life. So she was just writing about Anne Boleyn based on the facts that she got. And I get that. It's just that I read other accounts where she was present. And I remember reading something that she wanted to nurse Elizabeth herself, which queens did not do in that time period. And I just feel like, you know, she wanted to do that herself. She must have really loved her daughter. So I am just gonna agree to disagree with Alison Ware on that one. I'm sure she knows a lot more than me because she's an actual historian and I'm not. But I feel in my heart that Anne must have loved Elizabeth. Okay. We're just gonna leave her right there. So that's it. That is the 15 books that I read this month. Oh, and that reminds me, this one was my other chunker, and this was an adult, so this one took me a little longer. So I had some thin ones in my list, and I had some thick ones like that one and Crave, okay? So there were some chunkers in my list too. But 15 bucks, man, that is my PR, and I am excited. Thank you for watching this all the way through. Sorry I got emotional at times, but you know, I think that just shows that it was a really good reading month, because I mean, even the book that I gave 2 stars that was making me emotional, at least I got something from it, you know? Can't ask for more than that. All right, thank you guys for tuning in for this long video. I really, really appreciate it. All right, I will catch you next time, guys. Bye.